Wednesday, April 24th is now called into session. We do have a quorum, and I would like to bring your attention to the agenda. If there is anyone in the public who would like to make public comment, you're invited to address the committee. Seeing none, we'll move over. If members would just review the summary of actions from our March 27th meeting and entertain a motion to accept it.
I move accepted.
Second.
So the representative from the city of the town of Moraga has moved to accept it, and the second is the representative of the city of Pleasant Hill. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And any abstentions? And seeing none, then it carries. Thank you. Our general business, if you would look at your attendance log, please. And if there are any corrections as to the attendance record, for example, you're noted absent but you were here, or you were here but you were absent. Just kidding. Okay. I do notice some members who have been absent, and we will be contacting them to find out if, number one and foremost, hopefully they're okay. So that's my biggest concern, contacting them and make sure that they're okay. And then on with that, if there's a reason why they're not attending, and we can certainly look at that. And then beyond that, if there isn't an interest and they've got other activities, then we will need to replace them. Okay, if you would look at the meeting calendar, and that's just for information as to the next meetings, when they're being held, and what dates. So we have three major discussion items on the agenda this evening, and they are the compliance checklists. We have the City of Orinda, we have the City of Oakley, and we have the City of San Pablo. So we do have the representative of the City of Orinda. If you would please come forward. So a reminder to everyone, please put your cell phones on silent. And everybody will have an opportunity to speak. God bless you. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. I do ask that we do that one at a time. Please press your microphone, and when you're not speaking, then depress it. So we have the City of Orinda here. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. And we will let you introduce yourselves.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, members of the Citizen Advisory Committee. My name is Jason Chen. I'm the city engineer for City of Orinda. With me today is our Director of Planning, Drummond Buckley. We're pleased to be here to present our checklist and appreciate your time in reviewing our checklist. I'll briefly go over the checklist, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. For 2016 and 2017, Orinda participated in two regional committees. Orinda participated in the Regional Transportation Management and Planning as a member of the Southwest Area Transportation Committee, also known as SWAT. This consists of an elected official from each of the city and town, as well as the staff in a monthly SWAT meeting. In addition, the staff participate in the Staff Transportation Advisory Committee, also known as the SWAT-TAC. So it's a little bit unique because there are essentially two main corridors. The 24 corridor consists of Orinda, Lafayette, and Moraga, and the 680 corridor consists of Danville and San Ramon, and obviously county is part of each corridor, the incorporated county. So in addition to SWA, Orinda is also a member of the Regional La Miranda Program Management Committee, known as LPMC, and the La Miranda Fee and Financing Authority, LFFA. And similar to SWA, there's a meeting with the elected official, and there's a technical advisory with the staff. Orinda staff also participate in the CCTA TCC Technical Coordinated Committee and the City and County Engineer Advisory Committee. As part of the CCTA Coordinator Call for Project in 2016, Orinda applied and received grants for the Glorieta Elementary School Safe Route to School Project, Orinda Way Pavement Rehab Project, Camino Pablo Bicycle Route Corridor Improvement Project, and Downtown Orinda Streetscape Master Plan. A little bit outside of 2016 and 2017, a quick update. The Glorieta Elementary School Safe Route to School project was approved last night in our City Council, and we plan to advertise it by the end of this week. The Orinda Streetscape Master Plan held numerous public meetings, and we received quite a good feedback from our community, and we're making good progress on that. And back to 2017, in 2017 we completed the Orinda Bar Access Ramp and Lighting Project. This project removes the existing concrete stairs and replaced with a new ADA compliant ramp and new stair, as well as provide LED lighting underneath the State Route 24. If you'll excuse me for a little bit nerdy engineering talk, on surface it might appear that there's a ramp and a set of stairs. However, this was quite a challenging engineering project. The site was very tight. We barely have enough room to make the ADA grade. And on one side of the project, we have a central sense pumping plant. The other side, we have the State Route 24. And we are also, on the third side, we have a large retaining wall that holds up the hill for Camino Pablo. There were two large sanitary sewer main, 18-inch and 30-inch. Not only were they coming through the project side, they were also making a 90-degree within the project side. So when you have making that turn, there was a big thrust box trying to hold the pipe together. And we ran into some unexpected issue during construction. The thrust box was bigger than we expected, so there was quite a bit of redesigning. At the end, the project consists of 7 retaining walls and almost 60 piles. But this has become a very valuable facility for Orinda, for the pedestrians that are traveling to the theater side of our downtown, especially coming from BART. The lighting at the ramp as well as underneath the State Route 24 made walking a lot more inviting. We're pleased to report that this project won the Merit Award in February from American Council of Engineering Company, and also was nominated for an APWA Award, American Public Works Association. We really could not have done this with our funding partner. This project was funded with Measure J money, BART money, TDA, and local funds. And CCT money, the Measure J money, provided quite significant portion of this project. Lastly, Orinda exceeded the maintenance effort requirement for fiscal year 2016 and 2017. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we're ready to answer any question you may have.
So I'd like to open this up by congratulating you on the awards for the city. That really is a nice ramp. When you said it's inviting, my thought is, and it's safe. Because BART is still running at midnight, and so you've got people who are getting off the trains either coming in from San Francisco or Oakland Airport, and they're utilizing the transit system. And it's very nice. Congratulations. I saw that and I thought, good luck to you. How the heck are you going to do that? But that I would think is something that you feel good about being recognized by your peers. So with that, I'd like to encourage the members, if there are any questions to ask of Jason.
I do have
Okay.
a few questions. Thank you, Jason. Nice presentation. What are the plans, the city's plans for connecting both sides of Orinda, the commercial districts on both sides, when you have Highway 24 in the middle and BART? Is there anything you can do?
Hi, excuse me. My name's Drummond Buckley. I'm the planning director. So the planning department has been working on this, what we call the Connect Orinda project, for the past year or so. We're at the kind of final stages. The next big event for us is what we call our celebration, where we're going to present to the community the main components of the plan before we write the final document. Our consultants, so Farron Piers is the transportation consultant, and WRT is the urban designer. Right now, one of the things that they're looking at very carefully are a couple of different alternatives for connecting the two sides of downtown. I don't know if the people here are aware of this, but in Caltrans's bicycle master plan, the third project that they list in terms of priority for Contra Costa County is actually a bridge, a bicycle bridge over Highway 24 to connect the two sides of Orinda. Yeah, so that was adopted in late 2018. So one of the projects that we're trying to flush out in terms of feasibility in this stage of the Connect Orinda project is what kind of feasibility issues we might have with trying to do a bridge, and we're also looking very carefully at whether there's room under the overpasses for a two-way cycle track on the east side of Camino Pablo, in addition to, of course, a sidewalk, which we already have. So preliminarily, we have found that there is enough room to actually do that for all of the underpass area except for the oldest underpass, which is the one on the southern side between the BART station and what we now call the Theater District, used to be called Crossroads. We just recently, just like last week, I was talking with the consultants because they actually got as-built plans and were able to rule out the possibility of building a small tunnel on one side of that underpass that would have been able to perhaps provide the bicycle and pedestrian access that we're trying to do. So there still might be a possibility. The pedestrian path that we have there is on a retaining wall, so there might be a possibility to as part, this would be a big project, but to remove the retaining wall and have a cantilevered or raised walkway with a bicycle path underneath it, because again, that's our sort of pinch point for the area between the two sides of downtown, if we were to choose to not go the bridge route.
Thank you. I have one more question, Madam Chair. What are you looking at when it comes to low and moderate housing? I know it's a rather sensitive subject in Orinda, and so I'm just wondering, are there any plans afoot or locations that have been designated for development for this type of housing?
Sure. Our city council right now, after the last election, we have consensus among the council to look at downtown revitalization, and part of that would be looking at increasing our density. So one of the CIP items that went to the council last night is a like $470,000 project planning project, which we would plan to start this summer, looking at changing our development standards so that mixed-use multifamily housing is allowed within downtown at a higher density than currently allowed. So currently, our downtown commercial district only allows 10 units to the acre. So this clearly there's room to increase that if the council wishes to. So we're looking at doing perhaps a specific plan for downtown Orinda. Part of the funding for that would come from the SB2 money, which is a non-competitive grant. The first year of SB2 grant funding, the state is allowing cities of Orinda's size to get $160,000 as long as you're doing a project that conforms with their criteria. And we believe that a project that includes increasing the density would. The other thing we're looking at is some kind of TOD development potentially with BART. And so this was also approved as an item on the council's strategic priorities for the next 2 fiscal years. The Orinda station is, and the parking lot is owned by Caltrans. It's not BART-owned property, so it's not covered by AB 2923, which is the bill that gives BART kind of autonomy to do TOD on land that they own. But the council is still interested in talking with BART and possibly pursuing something there. So, and in terms of affordability, clearly if we allow higher densities, we're going to be able to build some more affordable housing than we currently are able to do in Orinda, where we're almost entirely single-family residential. As far as deed-restricted affordable projects, I think that may be, I think it's likely, for instance, if we did a deal with BART is going to require that a significant proportion be deed-restricted affordable if the project has housing. And if we were to start seeing bigger mixed-use projects in downtown Orinda at higher densities, it's quite possible that developers would try to take advantage of density bonuses and things like that by having an affordable component. Sure.
Other questions?
Yeah, I had a question, a comment regarding what you were saying about the bicycle facilities on Camino Pablo underneath 24. I ride that a fair amount, and I'm impressed with how Orinda took a really complicated area and just with paint made a real improvement. So I'm really impressed with what you guys did.
And Jason might have a little update there because that's going to get a little bit better with the CCTA funding on a project which is in design right now, correct?
So as part of the 2016 COFO project, we were awarded funding for the Camino Pablo Corridor Bicycle Improvement Project.
Is that the third item that you mentioned?
Yes.
And could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so essentially it will start from essentially the BART entrance when you go southbound on Camino Pablo, and it will extend all the way to I think toward Minor Road area. So in between, we identify different improvement within that corridor, and that's what we plan to implement. We sent out RFQ out last month. We received that, so we plan to start the design portion of that work soon.
Basically, what kind of improvement?
So there's different parts. There's, for example, at Camino Pablo and Camino Cervantes at the at Orinda Way. At Orinda Way. There's a pork chop island, kind of triangle island where the signal pole is sitting at. What happened? We found out that based on the striping, the island is kind of encroaching out if you kind of have an imaginary line through that intersection. So some of the work is to remove that extra piece of concrete so that way for bicyclists, they don't have to feel like they're through the intersection, they're traveling toward the vehicular travel lane, then come back in. So there is some improvement in that. There's also some loop detector improvement that we want to do from the side street, so that it will be more helpful for cyclists. Now, in terms of closer to the 24 or the bar entrance, we want to make some improvement around that on-ramp when you go southbound Camino Pablo. From that location, the westbound on-ramp, all the way to the bar, we think we can make some more improvements. So we're looking at maybe some more striping improvement. We may have to narrow some of the existing travel lane to accomplish that. But we find that right now it's class 2 until you get to that Santa Maria on-ramp, westbound on-ramp, and then it's really class 3 for the next segment. So we figure we can make at least one more improvement, at least to the bar entrance, and we think that might be helpful. Now, the next segment is a little bit more difficult, so we might have to stay back at the class 3, but at least we're trying to find a way to make some incremental improvement for the bicyclists.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Other comments?
So I'm reviewing the housing element, and it looks like you all have made pretty good progress. I mean, you're practically halfway there to your RHNA targets, but at least for, I think, the end of 2017, which is the reporting period. But as was already alluded to by Larry, I think that you're at 0 for very low. And aside from maybe doing that change to your downtown specific plan, what other items have you all considered? I know SB 50 is probably on everyone's minds right now, and I have a feeling your council is probably seriously considering the changes that you proposed to try and head that off. Where do you stand, or what is the city seeing at this point?
Well, as far as SB 50, the City Council of Orinda has not taken an official position yet. However, that will probably be on their agenda for the May 7th meeting. Most like what we're going to recommend is that they sign on to the letter that was drafted by the Public Managers Association in Contra Costa County. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with that, but it's basically the PMA came up with a draft resolution. As far as what the position says, I think it's fairly nuanced. It's not. I'm not sure that it's exactly opposing everything in SB 50, or maybe a combination of opposing some things and recommending some differences. If SB 50 is ultimately adopted in some form, we'll have to deal with that when that happens. That's other than expressing an opinion, it's in many ways outside of Orinda's hands, right? As far as other ways to get more affordable housing, deed-restricted affordable housing in Orinda, we do have our main RHNA site, which is located, it's a portion of the Santa Maria Church property that has a high-density overlay zone on it. And so far, the property owner has not expressed any interest in doing housing at that location. We have had some interest from a senior housing group for doing some senior housing on another church property adjacent to downtown Orinda. But, the only way that we don't control what people want to do with their private property, obviously, but the planning department is willing to, and our doors are always open in terms of talking with property owners who are interested in doing something like that.
One of the reasons I'm curious, I've seen it in a few other cities, and this is the kind of the thing that I bring up at every meeting now, is the ADUs or in-law units. The deed-restricted options there seem to be viable. A handful of cities have kind of made it work, and they're banking units now for their RHNA targets. Is there an appetite in Orinda for that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't talk about the ADU. Accessory dwelling units is one of the most common questions that we get at our counter these days, as I think probably true, probably statewide, certainly around Contra Costa County. And we adopted city regulations pursuant to the state bills in 2017 and 2018. So we're up to date and consistent with state law. Speaking of deed restrictions, we do not require a deed restriction on ADUs that specifies that one of either the main unit or the ADU needs to be owner occupied. So Lafayette, for instance, has that deed restriction requirement, but that doesn't necessarily help affordability. In fact, it might hurt it. Looking at our numbers here, in 2016 we had 2 ADUs, in 2017 we had 7, and in 2018 we had 4.
Is that the moderate, where your moderate
Correct.
homes are coming from? Okay.
Yes,
So you're
non-deed restricted moderate. So pursuant to our housing element, it classifies ADUs as non-deed restricted moderate.
all right. Cool.
Other comments? So traditionally what we have is we would have the representative, Orinda's representative, make a motion to accept your compliance checklist. We don't have an Orinda representative. Bring that back to your council, please. Just saying. We did have one, and he recently resigned for other opportunities. So we are looking. We want you to look with us. Thank you. However, we do have the representative from Moraga, and I would like to extend that courtesy to the town of Moraga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As your next-door neighbor, it's an honor to recommend to our body that we accept your report and congratulate you on the work you've done. And sounds like you're moving ahead and going to do some very positive things with some very difficult challenges facing you. So I make a motion that we accept the report.
So I have a motion to accept the report, and I have a second, which is the representative of Pittsburgh. So all of those in favor, please note by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by nay. Abstentions. So the vote carries. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here. And next is May 1st. You will then be addressing the Authority's Planning Committee. And then on May 15th, the Authority will review the checklist. So good luck. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the City of Oakley. This is a familiar face. He's been here before. So please introduce yourself.
Sorry. Kevin Rohani, Director of Public Works. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We're pleased to be here with you tonight. We'll provide you a brief update of some of the happenings in Oakley, then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. The report that's been presented to you, obviously, is for the 2016-17. City of Oakley being, not the biggest city in the county, in the far eastern part of the community, but we still are actively engaged in a number of the regional programs as a part of the transplant, TCC, and CCEAC. We strive, our council really emphasizes the importance of proper infrastructure to change the narrative of some may perceive Oakley as it used to be back in the day to current Oakley. Oakley this year actually is the 20th anniversary of Oakley, so it was incorporated in 1999. So we're very excited, and certainly council is excited on the improvements that's been done to Oakley. One of our important projects that we finished during this reporting period was our downtown improvements If you had been in downtown Oakley a few years ago, it was the old Highway 4 that's been since a number of years ago was deeded back to the city, and it was basically an old road with hardly any type of infrastructure other than for vehicles. We have really enhanced the operation of the downtown for pedestrian, bicyclist vehicles, add a lot of safety improvements. Our project actually won the APWA Northern California Rural Project of the Year. So we're very proud of that project. We continue again as a part of our City Council's mission to improve the quality of infrastructure with the limited sources, funding sources we have, do annual street resurfacing. So our PCI for the city streets is right now sitting at 76, which is pretty good. Now, Oakley being a community that's pretty much developer driven, we have some newer neighborhoods, so that helps our PCI, but we have some roads that we have inherited from decades ago during the county days, and they have their own issues like many of our communities with older roads. So we're trying to work a balance and stretch the dollar as we can. But our overall PCI is in pretty good shape. One of the exciting programs and projects that we are pursuing is the new train platform station that's going to be built in downtown Oakley. Our council has been working for several years with San Joaquin Railroad Authority to have a train station, train stop, if you will, in Oakley. We have train tracks that traverse Oakley, and that's the train that I believe goes from Modesto to Oakland. And as a part of this process, finally through some grant funding, that project was funded. We have had meetings with, Amtrak has taken over the project on behalf of the San Joaquin Railroad Authority. So complementing our new downtown is going to be a platform station that trains come, and we're going to have parking lot infrastructure. We have a pretty comprehensive downtown revitalization. Downtown Oakley, we are trying to really create a new downtown, unlike some of the cities that have an established downtown. We just don't have that. So it's a work in progress, but the plan is once this station is built, you can park your car, get on a train, and less than 1 hour you'll be in Oakland and more of the job center. Oakley, you may know, is currently pretty much a bedroom community. We do not have a lot of commercial development. We're trying to change that narrative, but right now a lot of it's essentially a large bedroom community. Our residents, travel through Highway 4 or go through BART or Vasco going south, go to various job centers. We're actively working and trying to, have more commercial job centers into Oakley. Near the intersection of Highway 4 and Highway 160, back in the day there was DuPont had a plant. Some of you may be aware of it, which has been closed for several decades, has gone through remediation and cleanup, and we've been looking for somebody to come and develop that site. It's about 150 acres. Earlier this year, a development company out of Kansas City has come and is in the process of purchasing that property from DuPont to develop it into about 2 million square foot of warehousing. Again, it's not kind of the job centers that we wanted, but creates a few jobs and cleans up that site. That end of the town is really industrial and just was an old abandoned factory that's caused a lot of griefs. So we're excited. Hopefully that development follows through, and that end of the town really gets a facelift. Again, we continue to strive to make Oakley a better place than what it used to be. I have talked with our planning manager, knowing you wanted some information about our housing and what we do on the housing arena. Oakley is probably one of the very few places in the Bay Area, for many reasons, that you can still go and buy a brand new house for about $500,000 if we use that as the barometer of the day. We have a number of developments that are taking place. We have a lot of farmlands that, these are 100-acre, used to be cattle farms that's long been gone, and farmers have sold, developers have bought, and we're building a lot of neighborhoods and communities out there, especially on the East Cypress corridor, the far east end of Oakley, that you run into the delta. That road really dead ends. You can't go any further away. You're out there, and that's the area that these developers have bought. Old farms, and they're in the process of development. So there'll be a lot of new housing out there. Oakley has a accessory dwelling unit ordinance that complies with the state law, and this ordinance actually took place in 2017. Right now, we continue to actively engage on producing market and affordable housing. City approved 74 affordable low and very low income housing in 2017, which as of now, all of them have been constructed and are occupied. City is, really we've demonstrated a very significant progress in accomplishing goals of the 2015, 2023 housing element planning period. And we continue to do that. Right now, even in the current economy, we have 192 above moderate units planned for 2018, 2019. So as we develop, we really work to have, affordable and moderate income housing, certainly in Oakley. That's just kind of a summary of the information I have. If any, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Anything I can't, I'll be happy to provide you once we talk with our staff. Thank you.
The City of Clayton?
Yes, thank you for coming and talking with us, Kevin. I've been anxiously awaiting a representative from your town for many reasons. So I'm from Clayton, and we have the interesting distinction, by the way, of I believe our two cities are the only ones that if you search on the internet for California and parolee housing, I think we're the only two cities that have an official ordinance on the books. Anyway, ours came with a little bit more noise on our side. Listen, I wanted to ask you a question that may seem even more far afield than just housing. But you spoke about the DuPont plant and the remediation of that by sales to a developer that's going to turn it into something that's not an eyesore, and that is good. I'm not very familiar what continues to exist within your city defined boundary as far as developable property. But in a very real sense, Oakley exists sort of, as you indicated, it's still like the frontier of, it's the edge of sort of affordable living in the Bay Area. And that presents a couple of opportunities. One of those opportunities is, in a sense, being out there, you're not only an affordable housing location, you're the greatest possible source of additional road consumers for the rest of the trip into the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, you have an unusual amount of leverage to potentially reduce road hours, car hours for everyone, for the rest of the community. My question is this. In addition to developing some housing with the developers, have there been any concerted efforts to entertain some sort of South Bay or San Francisco employers to provide jobs out in that area because of the affordable land? And then those are drivers that are headed
in that direction instead of, inward toward the Bay Area on 24 or 680 or whatever. I'll let you talk.
Sure. Yes, a short answer to your question, yes. Both, I know our council, we are eagerly looking, working, soliciting those types of opportunities to actually bring job centers to Oakley. Both our council members and we have our economic development manager that he works collaboratively with the regional, especially on the East County with Pittsburgh, Antioch, Brentwood, his colleagues. Collectively, how do we bring jobs? How do we bring commercial industry to Oakley? So eliminate a lot of those trips that, every morning, our commute hours, a lot of them begins like even before 4 a.m. to go to San Jose, go to San Francisco. These are 3-hour affairs one way and 3-hour affairs coming back. It's painful, and that's the trade-offs that we all face. Just how to balance job versus housing. So it is a difficult task. Developers, and especially in the commercial. We the new downtown, just as an example, we built a beautiful infrastructure. I compare it to any city in the Bay Area, even far, far more affluent cities. It's a beautiful infrastructure, and we have worked. There's a section of property, it's an acre piece. Good point you brought up. It's right next to where this new train station is going to be. It's perfect, ideal location. We worked with a developer. This was going to be office building and retail, very beautiful building. We collaborated with them throughout the process. We did the infrastructure. They were going to do the building. Everything was finished. At the end, they backed out of a deal, and they said, we're not doing it. So essentially a pile of dirt that has been there for eons still sits there, and they got a for sale sign on it. In fact, yesterday I emailed the property owner, said, it's been a while since we talked. How are things? Any takers? And he says no. He wants $1.5 million for about an acre of land, which, by the way, they have plans approved. They have the entire construction plan, went through the whole plan check process. We have literally issued the building permit. Plans are sitting in our building department ready to be picked up. And they said, no, we did the math, and this stuff doesn't pencil out for us. So developers, especially on the commercial and the job centers, they want to maximize the value. And, we're excited. Certainly the DuPont, again, it's not a big fancy office building or a factory that's going to generate thousands of jobs, but cleaning out that area would be a major enhancement. Still, there's going to be people working there. So we look at kind of the Oakley region incremental improvements. I know, again, our council member, Kevin Romack, is on the board of the CCTA. He's been a long-term resident of Oakley, really promotes Oakley. And again, we're all collectively trying to bring those jobs, no matter what they are, into that. But yeah, we do work collaboratively. I understand I'm not intimately involved in that, but with the regional partners, how can we even we bring a company, a job center to Brentwood or to Antioch, because still out on that side of the hill, so to speak, so helps the overall reducing the commutes.
The train station, is that ACE? Is that the ACE Commute Express, or is that just Amtrak?
It's Amtrak.
It's Amtrak, okay.
It's Amtrak, it's my understanding, and we actually had a meeting with them about a month ago. All of their staff came, and we had just the coordination meetings, and they're going to do the train station. We do there's a plaza, Gateway Plaza, and off-site improvements, roadway, parking lot that we will build, and both projects will kind of butt against each other. So we're working with them. They're, I understand, working on issuing an RFP to get their design consultant on board. their funding of the train station came from SB1. So they're funded. We're trying to structure our part of the project through local funds. And that, again, all of those will make major improvements to downtown Oakley from back in the day.
Well, and I suspect that when that happens, it may be a sort of a if you build it, they will come situation, in the sense that if the structure exists, I think that is an ideal time for the city fathers to approach specifically employers in downtown Oakland who could look at that as an easy means of transit for a satellite office. They wouldn't have to worry about traffic for if their executives needed to come and travel out to the remote site. I guess I want to impress upon you that maybe we haven't been all that judicious. We've built out every square inch of housing that we can in many of the East Bay communities. And once you've gone housing, it's going to be it's just impossible to then make that affordable to parcel out and reprocess as commercial space later. Nobody wants to buy a few acres of $1 million homes and level them in order to build an office park. So to the extent that you can hold the tide out there and make sure that there are some employers, especially with your transit being a great opportunity for that to happen, I just want to encourage you as much as possible to do that.
Absolutely. Point well taken. And we are really focusing on that. I mean, this is like, there has to be a catalyst, especially in downtown, to trigger this. First part of it was the infrastructure. Now that's done. Now something else because, again, if you live out there, it's very convenient for you with the train. You get on a train and you do your work, and less than an hour later in Oakland. So we are going to be definitely looking at any and all opportunities to solicit and bring jobs on that side.
Yep.
Quick question. Going back to the DuPont site, it's my understanding there was either a wildlife refuge or a wetland on the actual site. Do you know what's going to happen to that?
I'm not aware of a wildlife refuge. I mean, it's a big site, and it basically backs into there is a marina. So if there is a refuge, it's on that would be the north side of the property. It won't be on DuPont site.
Well, I know that Lindsay Wildlife was conducting classes out there, and they had to get into the DuPont area to conduct the classes. So I'm just curious.
That I don't know the specifics of it, but I understand, the site itself is about 150 acres, but then backs into, it could be maybe to get to it, they go through the DuPont driveway, which, by the way, we keep calling it DuPont. It's actually called Chemours. It's a offshoot of DuPont. It's not called, DuPont anymore. But, yeah.
Other comments?
I have a question. I'm pretty familiar with Oakley, and I'm looking eastward out towards Bethel Island, Cypress Road. The property at the corner there was our family ranch that we sold many years ago, and it's full of houses, and it meets up to the river as well, where Cypress Road makes the last turn before you go up to Bethel Island.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, in Byron, where I live, I can literally walk the perimeter of the urban limit line in 1 hour. How did you, as a city, be able to extend your urban limit line all the way to Bethel Island?
It's my understanding a number of years ago, 10 or so plus years ago, that entire East Cypress corridor going to Bethel Island was annexed from Contra Costa County to City of Oakley. Again, don't quote me on the exact timeline, but it's been about a decade or so from what I understand. As a part of that whole transaction, the urban limit lines was set at that time. It was all part of this one annexation.
Okay. So you're taking services all the way out to Cypress Road, going north?
Yes, actually, the ranch that you mentioned, I just want to get myself oriented. Your ranch was at the corner of Bethel Island and Cypress?
We always called it the Knightson Ranch because it was so close to Knightson. But if you take Cypress directly east,
right,
and there's a stoplight at the corner where you only can go left. If you go straight, you would go on to our ranch. So the property there, it was about 300 acres that we sold, and we sold it in the mid-'80s. And it wasn't developed for a really long, long time. But the property went all the way over to the river on the other side of Sand Mound Slough.
Sand Mound Slough. Going from Oakley on East Cypress Road all the way east, when we get to that light, is at Bethel Island. That's right at Bethel Island that you make a left and go Bethel Island. Then to the right is the Summer Lake subdivision.
Yes.
Summer Lake, they call it Summer Lake South.
Yes.
Which is about 600 or so houses, was built about 20 years ago.
Yeah, by A.J. Solomon, yes.
Shea Homes.
Shea Homes built them.
Yeah, Shea Home built that subdivision.
Yeah.
Now, Shea Home had the Summer Lake North, which is the area, let's say, would be north of East Cypress Road, all the way to Sand Mound,
Right.
borders Bethel Island. Right now, that's just cow pasture and.
That's the Del Porto Ranch, yes.
Yes, and now
Yes.
another developer has bought that, and they're coming to do their paperwork for. I'm hearing about 800 more houses there.
Okay. I mean, I'm just wondering how you got your urban limit line extended so far out. And Byron, we can hardly develop because our urban limit line, I know this sounds crazy. I could probably throw a baseball from one side to the other. That's how it's so small. So, and we're being told that we can't extend our urban limit line. So I was just concerned.
Thank you, Patricia. If I may weigh in on that, I think your city addressed that question, not specifically, but it does address the question, and you answered it on page 2.2 of 11, and that was regarding the general plan amendments and how you were bringing the general plans in compliance with the state flood protection law. So how you were able to, your city was able to amend those general plans and use the land and the flood management practices for which develop new requirements and standards. So I'm just weighing in and saying that that's where you might see it, Patricia. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Chad.
Thank you for the rundown on housing. You're building more units than anyone else practically, especially if it looks like Summer Lake North. 800 units would be collectively more than the last 3 reporting periods that you have. I don't know how long it's going to take that to get off the ground, of course, but it'll be a few years before we see any of that. Do you know, I assume if they've already come to you to start the process, if the conversations have been had, a lot of the new developments we're seeing proposed in Pleasant Hill, pretty much everything now, their developers are already including in-law units cooked in. They're already seeing that as hitting their mandatory low-income housing requirements or inclusionary housing goals. The town of Danville brought this up last month as well. are you seeing the same thing where they're already built on as, what are they calling them? Like, they're like lock-in suites almost, so they're part of the footprint. They're not true secondary units like a lot of people are building separately on their own. The developers are having it above the garage or some way cooked into it. Easy boost to your housing targets. Have you seen that, or have you talked to them about that?
Not in Oakley, not that specific model. Again, just because of the nature of, we all call it that side of the hill versus this side of the hill. It's a different reality. So the developers who build all of these homes, all of them, their price ranges, they started in the low 400s to low 500s. They're targeting basically first-time home buyer, your very traditional base level tract home. We don't get to see some of the custom or semi-custom homes that you see, let's say, in this side. The products that they're designing and they're bringing to the table and they feel they can sell them, and obviously they're selling those as fast as they build them. Is your very traditional single-family house. It ranges, they're small ones, about 1,800 square foot, and they get to 3,500. 3, 4, 5 bathrooms. The lot sizes ranges anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 square foot. And 6,000 is a big lot, even out there in that region. Our council, I know developers have come and they're trying to, they propose 3,000 square foot lot. Our council does not support that. Again, just because that's a different layout of the land. For instance, in Oakley, we don't have townhouses. None of these developers who come and build, in this side, because of the land has much more higher price, things are much more squeezed, so you see a lot of townhouses, duplexes, and apartments. None over there. The most that Summer Lake North that we mentioned, that developer, the new developer has bought from Shea. We heard one of their concepts they're looking at is more like senior housing. Have bunch of traditional single-family house, but part of the neighborhood they're looking at maybe building some senior housing. That's a segment of the community that really we don't have much in Oakley. I mean, Oakley, you look at it kind of the old Oakley versus the new Oakley. So, and it's an interesting dynamic that we deal with the community members on a almost day-to-day basis. I mean, you have some folks who have been there many years, lived the country life, and they like the country life. If they had their ways, there would be no asphalt street. They wanted gravel road, and that's fine. And then you got the new Oakley, which is all the people who are coming from San Jose and San Francisco because they can buy a new house for $500,000, and that's the reality of the day. So they come from communities which had a totally different dynamic, and they want different expectations. And so we'll sort through all of that with them, but it's just kind of a tale of two cities. And I think as the city grows, you're going to have the newcomers will have the majority versus the old-timers, because the old-timers aren't buying these new tract homes. It's the new guys who are coming to buy them.
Other comments or questions? So I would like to mention something about industry coming out to that area. I vice chair the Contra Costa Workforce Development Board, and we are actively soliciting businesses out by the Antioch waterfront area. And that is encouraged by Assemblyman Jim Frazier and Glover, God, I forget his last name. And, so we are very much involved in attracting businesses and speaking to business partners. So if you are interested, please contact us at the Workforce Development Board. I'm happy to send you an email and letting you know the direct contact person for that. We have probably 3 or 4 events throughout the year where we bring businesses and predominantly focusing on those businesses in the San Jose area,
Right.
where properties that are prime. When you actually when you mentioned the warehouse, I immediately thought, oh, Amazon. Amazon's coming to Oakley? Cool. Obviously not, but that doesn't mean it won't. And so I'm happy to pass that information on to you. Yeah, and have your group become involved, because we do go out to Antioch, and we have something coming up for the waterfront district. We want to develop that area there, and having housing, as Ed was mentioning, you've got housing, you've got people right there, you've got your labor force. And the job is a half hour away, not 4 hours away, one way. And one other comment, I take the train out of Martinez, and I I travel to Stockton. 40 minutes to Stockton, $11.90 round trip. I don't have to drive through the Delta because I'm concerned that I don't have cell phones, and the traffic can get very, very crazy. And 40 minutes doesn't allow me to do a lot of business, but it does allow me to send emails out and make some phone calls and what have you. 40 minutes, one way. $11.98 round trip. So I'm very excited to hear about the possibility of having a train stop in Oakley. I really think that will put you on the map, because we do, it's Martinez, Antioch, Stockton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if there's a stop there for Oakley, I think that'll be really good for you. So traditionally, we have the representative of your area who would be mentioned, but we do. Okay, I'll tell you the same thing. We do not have a representative from Oakley. Hint, hint. Please go back and let them know that. Don't make me call your city clerk. So what I would like to do is I would like to invite our representative from Pittsburgh to make the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kevin, for your presentation tonight. It was very enlightening, and I'd like to take this opportunity and to recommend, of course, that your report this evening be accepted.
I second that motion.
Yeah, good, thank you. So we have the representative of the city of Pittsburgh who's made the motion, and then the representative of the city of Clayton who has seconded. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay, and abstention. So seeing that it has passed, thank you so much. So you know the drill. May 1st, you will be in front of the Authority Planning Committee, and then May 15th, the Authority will review the checklist. So good luck. Thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. By the way, last night at our council, I understand Mr. Dupree retired. This was on the topic of the discussion, and we will have a representative joining your group soon.
It's okay, you already gave your report. You don't have to butter me up. So the third item on our agenda is the City of San Pablo, and I see that both representatives are here. Yay. Now, we've got all the city engineers tonight. My gosh, how cool is that? All right, so Jill, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is Jill Mercurio. I'm the Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of San Pablo.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Dunn, and I'm the Planning Manager for the City of San Pablo. So this is my first time doing this, but I'll give a little context and background to San Pablo. And as Jill and I were talking in the back, you couldn't really have a more diverse county than Contra Costa County. You've got a very affluent city in Moraga. You've got a city that's still emerging in Oakley, and you've got a city in West County in San Pablo that's will be celebrating its 71st birthday next week and becoming a city. And it's a city that has an interesting history. It was built primarily for some wartime housing in World War II. It's sort of, the city is a bit of a elongated K shape with a spine of 23rd Street on the western part of the city. And that's where we have a lot of, that's called Old Town. There are significantly smaller lots, 2,500 square feet, 3,000 square feet, smaller homes of maybe 1,000 square feet, may or may not have a garage, that was built as temporary housing for the Kaiser shipyard construction. We are a city that primarily deals with renovations of existing homes. Occasionally we'll have, maybe a lot that had a substandard house where a new home is going to be proposed, so redevelopment at a very micro level. And that, I think, is part of the challenge of San Pablo and the development that we have, because most of the city is developed. Most of it is with housing. We have an interesting dynamic in that 60% of the city is comprised of renters. So it's something that is important to the council to try to increase that homeownership percentage, but quite honestly, it's a struggle with some of the socioeconomic and demographics that we have within the city. However, historically, when there was redevelopment, the city had funds that it could use to help incentivize or, be the catalyst for other kinds of projects. And that's where we're seeing a lot of development in San Pablo, along San Pablo Avenue, the main corridor for the city, between Church Lane and Vale Road. There is this area called Plaza San Pablo. That's where there's a lot of existing public sector uses. There is a new Women's, Infants, Children's Center, an existing West County Medical Center, a new building that's being constructed by the county for, I think it's also mental health issues. A city hall, is going to be constructed. Yesterday and today there was a wall tilting going on. Also in this area there has been a new national drug retailer that's come into town. We have a new library, or a relocated new library, and we're also going to we anticipate seeing two new projects in this area, a 26-unit townhome project and then a commercial building on San Pablo Avenue. When we met with the developers probably about 3 weeks ago for this new commercial building, we were excited to hear that it was intended to be a two-story mixed-use building with residential on top and commercial on the bottom. We got news this week that the construction rates are too high and rents won't pencil for any residential. My whole career has been, with the exception of 2 years, in the public sector, and even when I was with a consulting firm, I was working for cities, and one of them was the city of El Cerrito, and that was last year. That city is doing a great job with its specific plan in attracting new developments and seeing sites redevelop. We are seeing some of that in San Pablo with our San Pablo Avenue specific plan, but it's really still a matter of the city being involved in some level of participation on these projects. So the kind of projects that, again, we do have are relatively small. We are anticipating a new dialysis facility, which is not all that sexy, but a needed service. Just yesterday, there was a groundbreaking for a new fire station on 23rd Street. It will be a beautiful building, and that's really great to see in that particular part of the city. So that's kind of the range of projects that we have within the city. And maybe I should just stop there and let the authority have questions if that's what they'd like.
And we've had a number of capital projects that have been occurring as well. With the assistance of CCTA, we've completed the first phase of the San Pablo Dam Road Interchange project. CCTA is actually taking the lead on that, and we're assisting with that. Phase 2 is searching for more money currently. We have the biggest project that we have going on right now for streets is our Rumrill Complete Streets project. Rumrill branches off of San Pablo Avenue and then basically kind of parallels 23rd all the way down to Richmond. It's about a 2-mile segment, and we're planning to convert the entire 2 miles to a complete street. So we're converting 2 lanes each direction to 1 lane each direction, center turn pockets, separated bikeways, green infrastructure that separates the bikeways from parking. So it'll go sidewalk, curb and gutter, bikeway, bioswales, and then the parking, and then the travel lanes. One of the situations out there is that this is used as a cut-through street, and so speeds can really move up. And we have had a number of pedestrian vehicle incidents in this area. So the community is very excited to get this in there. It'll be very attractive. It'll be, right now our project cost is about $19 million construction cost. We have 10 different external fund sources and 2 internal fund sources. So if any of you have ever worked with grant monies and you know all of the bells and whistles and hoops to jump through that you need, multiply that by 10. So we're going to be very busy trying to make sure that we're tracking all the money appropriately, making sure that each entity that is providing funding gets what that funding was supposed to be for. So we've got some that's street tree related. We've got some that's green infrastructure related. 2 of the most interesting fund sources are alternative compliance for the stormwater systems. So we have two entities. One is Caltrans and one is the Tesoro Refinery, who are obligated to put in green infrastructure. They do not have either the space or the desire to put it in on their area. Caltrans is really, can be very confined in some places, that what their right-of-way is. And so they are providing funds to the city of San Pablo for us to build these, the offset green infrastructure in our area, which is a lovely model. The city actually just received a $685,000 grant from the EPA to study this as in a bigger form. So, for example, we're working with several other cities to work together to see if there's this kind of trading, kind of like a cap and trade. Areas that don't, either don't have the space or the value of the property is so high that the developers are willing to pay to move that somewhere else. And San Pablo is socioeconomically disadvantaged, and to be able to put these facilities in an area that was heavy, light to heavy industrial. We have contaminants in our soils. We have contaminants in our streams. So we could really use these amenities to make our community cleaner. And there's communities that, for example, Moraga, for example, I know could turn every single bit of their property into bioswales and green infrastructure, and there's not enough pollutants for them to meet what's required. Some places just don't have the pollutants. But we have them all, so we'll take the money and fix it. And that's what we're kind of working on with this EPA grant, is studying this more on a regional basis and seeing what we can develop that would be advantageous to everybody. We talked about the new city hall. We have one of we've got a number of grants for EV stations at the new City Hall. We just installed our second EV station at our current City Hall because the people were getting a little rough out there. There was a lot of demand for these chargers. People were coming over from the health center, for example, and walking but parking in these because we do not have a fee for charging your car in our City Hall parking lot right now. That may change with the new City Hall, but right now we have free charging, and trust me, everybody knows it. You can, if you look at that app and you look at our usage, it's like 80 to 100% of the time, except for like 4 in the morning. And there's a batch of people who come and leave their car there overnight, so to charge up. And again, this is so that we can encourage our community as much as possible to invest in a more sustainable community. We have, with the Measure J funds, that we do have Measure J funds in our Rumrell Complete Streets project. That's just one of those 10 fund sources. We also have a number of, we have some competitive money as well as the local streets and roads money. And then we have a number of projects that we've been saving up our annual allotments for. So we're putting in a new Wildcat Creek Trail project, and that's getting a fair amount of our TLC money, TLC money and the local streets and roads money. That will actually stretch between Church and Vale in that same area that Elizabeth was talking about. So behind all of those civic uses, there will be a nice trail that meanders along the creek there, with the area outside the library, for example, will be an outdoor reading room. So there'll be benches or rocks to sit on and stuff along those lines, where if they want to take their reading group outside, they can do that very easily. There'll be some more natural looking play areas for children, and that'll be a good project. We just got some of the bike and ped money to improve the road crossings at each end of that. So that's another one of our big projects that we're looking at putting out to bid within the next 6 months.
I did want to add one last thing. A couple of years ago, the City Council adopted the city's bike and ped master plan, and that was a great collaboration with Public Works and Community Development, and there was about $25,000 in money from Contra Costa Transportation Authority. So we thank you very much for that, because that really helped. We didn't have a lot of time and we didn't have a lot of money, but we were able to make a very good programmatic plan that really amazing staff in Public Works. They find grants like nobody's business. So they've been really successful at securing grants, and it's been because of the funding that we got from MTC and CCTA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were able to leverage a lot of money with using these monies as the matches. So again, putting together a $19 million project, piecemeal, literally, with the funding, has been very educational. You have any questions?
So thank you so much. And questions from the committee? City of Clayton.
Yes, I was just reflecting on the fact that you may be the one city that faces the problem of reverse density, because people might buy 2 1,000 square foot lots so that they could actually build one house instead of 2 on it. But the question I wanted to ask is about your $19 million project along turning this into a nice, well-developed and cultivated street. One question I was going to ask, since you did mention it was kind of used as a cut-through and stuff, and so then you start to wonder if there might be some negative traffic impacts for you later, like if they stop cutting through now that it's 1 lane, where is that going to hit you? My question was going to be, wouldn't you like to turn a $19 million project into a $50 million project by buying buying an easement onto the 2 sides and preserving it as 2 lanes while adding that median and the turn?
I'm pretty sure that the businesses along that area would be less than thrilled with that. we have been working very closely with our business community because this will impact it, especially the way that we're making the parking and everything. In order for them to access their driveways now, we have to break the median, break the bioswale, make sure there's enough room and everything. The traffic is supposed to stay on San Pablo Avenue. That is the road that has been designed and kind of blessed to be where this travel should go. Depending on if you are coming down San Pablo Avenue from Pinole, if you're trying to get over to the west side of Richmond, you may say, you know what, I'm going to take off right here, and it'll drop me off, very close to the BART yard is over there. I mean, there's several things that the business centers that are there, but the problem with that is that the increased speeds have been significant. So in order to, they're still more than welcome to use the road. They just have to slow down. And by reducing the lanes and making more things around to look at, it's a little dicier. They need to pay attention. They need to not do 60.
And I didn't realize, I'm sorry, I heard the ranch extended for a couple miles along there, and I got the impression that perhaps it was undeveloped for some portion of that.
There's actually virtually no undeveloped space, in the city, unless you count the non-filled cemetery area. But they're good at density, so it's okay.
San Pablo is about 2.5 square miles, about 31,000 people. And on the north, west, and south, surrounded by Richmond, and to the east, unincorporated Contra Costa County. So there's no room to develop. The only way we could grow would be to annex and land from Contra Costa County, and I don't think that's on anybody's radar for multiple reasons. So it's a pretty tight, dense, already intimate little city.
But for such a small town, it's insane how successful you've been, it sounds like, in doing business development. I mean, is there kind of a secret to your, some pale? No, is there some sort of secret to sort of the formula that your city government's been approaching this with?
Well, I think a lot of it really is some partnership with Contra Costa County in bringing some of those services in, and that partly is due to the demise of Doctors Medical Center. That has since, obviously, I mean, it's down. That building is down. It was amazing. I came off the freeway one day, and it just was gone. I was like, what happened? And then we also have the Director for Community and Economic Development, who is a whiz at negotiating. So Charles can make things happen. So I think it's a combination of a willingness and people within on staff who really have the skills to work and negotiate and bring projects in.
As Elizabeth mentioned, in my shop, we have some people who are very, very successful in getting grants. Mm-hmm. And so that makes all the difference in the world. So we have put we have invested in staff to help work on those. We've brought more analysts in to help juggle that kind of demand, but it's been well worthwhile.
Other comments? City of Walnut Creek?
Yes, just a couple more of a historical one. You said the temp housing, is that still in existence?
Yes. And it's quite honestly a bit of a struggle because there are pressures around the city for housing because of, I should say, the housing costs. People are looking at San Pablo a little bit differently, or there might be some occasional bargains. But the reality is it's not really a bargain, and here's an example. So most of the lots, the current codes now require 5,000 square feet per lot, which is fairly standard. This particular lot that I'm thinking of is about 4,500, so it relatively meets it, but it's a small house of about 800 square feet with kind of a lean-to, one-car attached garage. It was built in the late 1930s. There is no foundation. And the homeowners who bought the property really don't have the capital to do the kind of work that needs to bring it up to current standards. We're not in a position to say demolish it, but the money to put into that house to renovate it, to add a real foundation, and now we've since learned that they would like to have a second story.
Sorry.
Okay, so It was a steal at about $200,000, but it's going to take another $200,000 just to get it up to the point where it meets current code, and they don't have the money. So there's just some real struggles with the city. So that's my side road of an example. But yeah, that housing is still there, and unless it's really dilapidated, absent owner, it's been squatters, and code enforcement can close it up, and we can board it up and then start liening the property owner. Situations like that really don't go away too easily.
My second question is your relationship with the casino.
Interesting you should ask. They are probably the biggest employer within the city beyond the city of San Pablo and Contra Costa College and the Contra Costa County Health District. It's sort of a little dicey at times, no pun intended, sorry about that. And it's only a class 2. So it's, they're a big dog in town. They kind of throw their weight around.
It's one of those love-hate relationships.
Yeah.
Other comments and questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm really excited to hear about this work that's going to happen on Rumrill. It's the first I've heard about it, a road diet and making it a complete street.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking about that, I know that there's talk just starting about San Pablo Avenue. I don't know if it'll ever be a complete street all the way, but from Oakland all the way to Hilltop.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's in the early stages, and it's very unclear where it's going to end up. But I wonder if Rumrill could be kind of I know Rumrill doesn't have to carry as much traffic. It's less complicated, but I wonder if it'll be kind of a test case that people will look up Rumrill and get some good ideas that could be applied to San Pablo Avenue, even though it's not the same. Because I know when we talk about complete streets with like a high-speed bus lane and really nice buffered bike lanes and a road diet, people haven't seen a successful example of that anywhere. It's kind of, we've seen pictures, but I've never really seen that around the Bay Area on a street that carries much traffic. And I hope that is a really successful project and that people look at it and get inspired and apply some of those ideas to San Pablo Avenue, because that's the next big improvement we need to see. That's where we need a complete street.
No, we hope it's successful as well. We, understand there will probably be a lot of lessons learned as well, which we're more than happy to share with anybody else that's, contemplating the same type of work, because, again, we're all facing the same issues. We just happen to have a really ideal situation that qualifies for a lot of this alternative compliance money and a lot of the grant. I mean, your California Natural Resource Agency grants, and we're just bringing it in from all these very unusual sources for what is a street project. But because we're doing so many things with it, it will be. We're very excited by it.
And there is as you mentioned, there's a program that is being spearheaded by Alameda County Transportation Commission, ACTC, having to do with how San Pablo changes from Oakland to Richmond, Richmond Pinole, because it has these different feelings about it, and we are working with ACTC on that. We've had a couple of meetings. We know there are more meetings to come, and it certainly is the background for how San Pablo Avenue could evolve into a bus rapid transit. That's a big culture shift. I think given the traffic issues that the region has in general, it's probably worth the change.
Excuse me, you can educate me on this. Is San Pablo a state highway?
I don't believe it is through the city. I think it does change from Oakland to Crockett, but I don't believe that in San Pablo it is. I think it's our street.
Just thinking from the standpoint of funding.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one's all ours.
Yeah.
Other comments and questions?
Back to the complete street. What's the locals' buy-off, I'd imagine traffic calming measures are probably a win for the people who have to live near the street. I know that in the city of Pleasant Hill, a road diet was suggested, and everyone was kind of up in arms about it, even though the traffic science definitely seems to support it. What are you all seeing?
So we've had a number of community meetings on this, and when the first one, we kind of brought forth all of these advantages, the aesthetics and the environmental and the traffic, and all they wanted to talk about was the traffic. They didn't want to wait so long. They really want traffic slower through there now. Rumrell is a very wide street. I mean, there are places where it's parking, 2 lanes of traffic, a really big median, and more. And so the pedestrians and given the economies in San Pablo, there are a lot of people who walk to the store, walk around, and trying to cross that street when these vehicles are going so fast has really been an issue. We had a run last October. Only one was on Rumrell, but we had like 4 pedestrian accidents in a 2-week period. So this is something the community is very concerned about. We've been putting in a lot of the rectangular rapid flashing beacons and pedestrian activation, which is good for notification, but it doesn't, people. It's not a stoplight. So we've been working with the community on how. Where they want the crosswalks, what makes sense for the community, and they've been very positive about it. Even it's a rougher area, and so anything to make it more aesthetically pleasing is a goal of all of the businesses along there. That makes their frontage look much nicer. We're doing the things like painting the cabinets and doing some sort of an art thing with the community, but that sort of stuff really makes a big difference, and the people who live in San Pablo are very proud, and so putting this in there and allowing them to have this say, the only negative things we heard were, we want it sooner, we want traffic slowed down now. So we really haven't had a lot of issues. As a couple of things with making sure that the driveways for some of the industrial users are fine, and we can work with that. That's not a problem. But it's been very well received so far by the community. Now, it hasn't had construction yet, and I'm sure that they'll be less pleased for the year that the construction is going on. But hopefully, they'll be so happy at the end of it that they'll forget about it.
That's all part of the traffic calming measures.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Other comments or questions? So we do not have a representative. You've heard this twice already. I'm not going to repeat myself. It's in the public records.
Duly noted.
However, I would like to ask the representative of the City of Pinole to make a motion.
I'm thrilled to hear the things you guys are doing, and I'm hoping that it's an inspiration for doing similar things in Pinole. I move that we accept your report and your compliance checklist.
Thank you.
I'd second that.
And I have a second from the City of Clayton. So all those in favor, please notify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And abstentions? So it passes. Thanks. All right. So next, May 1st is with the Planning Committee, and then May 15th, the authority reviews your checklist. So good luck to you. I take San Pablo Dam Road all the time, and guess where I end up? So yeah, San Pablo is a cute little city. Yeah, it is. Good luck. Thank you. So next on the agenda is committee reports. God, I miss Stephen. So committee reports from our membership. No? Okay. And I would like Okay, next on the agenda is members or staff comments. So I'd like to welcome the members of the committee. Do you have any comments?
Just one sentence, Madam Chairperson. We've seen some really smart, scrappy fighters, some little fighters in these cities like Oakley and San Pablo. They're doing quite a bit with small amounts of resources.
I'll use this time to let everyone know this will be my last meeting. I have officially joined the Planning Commission for the City of Pleasant Hill. So
I think that is so exciting, Chad. I know that they will get a lot from you.
City of Pleasant Hill has appointed someone else for CCTA, so hopefully a seamless transition.
Yeah, we have someone who has been appointed already, so we'll meet her. Another girl. We'll meet her at our next meeting. Thank you. Patricia?
Yeah, we had our first town hall meeting in Byron, which I have never heard of before, and it was really enlightening. 5 people from the county came out and grouped us up into different groups on what we want and what we don't want in Byron. And we went, we said everything we did. But a gentleman sitting next to me, his name was Steve, and he is from Lafayette, and he is a developer, has been for 20 years, and he explained to me that he is going to all these town hall meetings, Knightson, Bethel Island, any of these unincorporated towns, because they have run out of room to build in Lafayette, and that they're looking for places where they can do a project and build homes. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
At the risk, yes, I see that. As I stated earlier, I vice chair the Workforce Development Board for Contra Costa County, and they show up at our meetings when we have business meetings regarding enticing businesses to come to the area, and they're okay. So where's the property? Where's the property? How much is it?
He explained that they can't afford it. They can't afford the property there, and modulars and mobile homes don't exist in Lafayette. And so, with the ADUs, and because I talked to him about that. And anyway, it was a very interesting conversation that we, as a county, have to find places for people to live.
Plus, our planning commission, permits take a long time. I won't go into this, but I will just say the crosses of Lafayette and leave it at that. Other comments or from our membership? So I want to make sure that you remember to sign the attendance sheet, people. Please do that. And Chad, I'm really happy for you. I'm sad for us. I'm very happy for you. I think that you will find that position to be extremely beneficial, and perhaps we might work on your political campaign when you run for city council. Yeah, we can say we knew you when.
In the meantime, I'll ask about ADUs as an honorarium to you.
Yeah. So, in our membership, over the years, I can't even, how long have I been on this? It's been a long time. Not forever, a long time. And I see that our members come in waves. So we do see a large vacancy. I don't get nervous about that because I've seen it in the past, and then all of a sudden we're full again, and we wonder if we have enough seats for everybody. So I know that that will be the deal. I do want to bring up another subject, the position of chair for this committee. Don't laugh. The position of chair, I think we'll be looking at an election probably in July. And so if you are interested in leading the group as chair, I would say let you know. Yeah, let you know. And then we will come back in July with a slate, and we can then vote. And the reason I bring it up is because I'm become very sensitive to the fact that I've been sitting here for a while, and I'm sure there's people here that would love to sit in this place. And so I just want to let you know that I have not grandfathered the position. It is open for all of those who are interested.
And don't be absent at that meeting.
Pardon?
I said, don't be absent.
Hello? You guys crack me up. Okay. Staff comments?
I don't have anything prepared other than to let you, and this kind of goes with future agenda items. The authority board last week at their meeting didn't make some decisions, but received a report on some focus groups we held regarding a new transportation expenditure plan, which is basically leads to a ballot measure for a new sales tax for transportation. And so the board has directed staff and consultants to continue the focus groups, as well as some focused polling around the county to see what types of things people might be interested in if they were to vote on a new sales tax. So we will be bringing, they will be making a decision in May as to whether they move forward on an expenditure plan, and whether they are looking at a March or November 2020 ballot or election. So we will be bringing a presentation to you on that, assuming that they decide to move forward. We'll either have our director or our deputy director of projects come and speak to you about that, because that is a big deal, and we like to start with this committee and get your opinions on that, and let you spread the word if something like that does move forward. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you. The next item is here's the newspaper clippings that you sent us. Thank you so much for those. It's very informative. And I remember when Grace first came to BART, I actually was the one to walk her around and introduce her to all the different departments. She was delightful and very appreciative. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and that turned into a very, very good relationship that I had with her throughout her tenure at the district. So I will be writing her a note. I also have here, and this was in the La Miranda Weekly, which is the newspaper we get for Lafayette, Moraga, Orinda, and it really has been addressing what we were very concerned about in Lafayette, was the housing project near the Lafayette stations, and how much more building can we sustain in the downtown area. And we had felt that we had addressed those housing concerns for middle income housing. And now we were looking at perhaps a more condensed area, so that to bring people out in groves. And the article here, two different articles, 2 different times. No plans for new housing project near Lafayette Station. And then the other one is no imminent plans to build on Lafayette BART-owned land. We'll see. Future items that we might want to suggest. I did have a future item that I sent to Matt to ask him, because I think that this group would just benefit greatly from the information. We had the executive director and the CEO of the Leadership Council who presented to the Workforce Development Board the traffic pattern for all of Contra Costa County. Traffic pattern, housing. And it was an eye-opener. I mean, it was the map, the colors. And so I immediately contacted Matt and said, please have Kristen come and speak to us. I think that we will all benefit from it and appreciate the work that they put into that study. It's enlightening. And if you have any suggestions on future agenda items, please contact Matt. Let him know. Before I adjourn, I want to say, Chad, you are always welcome to come and visit us. I think that if there are some items on the agenda that I think, as a planning commissioner for your city, that I think, well, you might be interested in this, I will ask Matt to reach out and let you know that we have it on the agenda, and you're very, very, very welcome to join us. I'll miss you. Good luck to you and your family. So with no other agenda items, I adjourn this meeting.